In a village where dust roads stretched between scattered huts, Kelechi climbed palm trees before dawn. His hands were rough, his clothing worn thin, but his heart shone brighter than any royal jewel. Each morning, he tapped the sweetest wine from the tallest palms. While others hoarded their harvest, Kelechi shared. The old widow who could not climb received his finest calabash. The children who begged for a taste never left disappointed. Even the sick, too weak to work, found generous portions at their doorsteps. "Foolish man," the marketplace traders whispered. "Kindness fills no purse." Yet Kelechi smiled. He helped children reach high branches. He carried water for the elderly. He mended broken fences without being asked. Most villagers barely noticed him, just another poor man doing poor man's work. But some, the ones who truly saw, nodded with quiet appreciation. Life was simple, predictable. Each day brought the same struggles: hungry bellies, tired bones, and the endless climb toward survival. Still, Kelechi faced each sunrise with warmth and hope. He possessed nothing of value. Or so everyone believed. One evening, as orange light painted the village gold, something strange occurred. Kelechi finished his rounds and sat beneath his favorite palm tree to rest. His calabash was empty. He had given everything away again. His stomach growled, but he felt content. When he stood to leave, something glinted in the dust where he had been sitting. A silver coin. Kelechi picked it up, confused. He had no silver. No one in his corner of the village possessed such wealth. He looked around, searching for whoever might have dropped it. The road was empty except for a tall figure disappearing into the distance. A stranger. Someone Kelechi had never seen before. "Wait!" Kelechi called out, but the stranger did not turn. Something about this felt wrong. The coin was too perfectly placed. Too convenient. Kelechi pocketed it carefully, intending to ask around tomorrow. Someone had lost this. Someone needed it returned. That night, he could not sleep. The coin seemed to hum with strange energy beneath his thin mat. Through his window, he thought he saw a shadow watching his hut. When he blinked, it vanished. Morning arrived with the usual chaos of the marketplace. Goats bleated. Vendors shouted prices. Children darted between baskets of yams and peppers. The air smelled of smoke, sweat, and ripe plantains. Kelechi carried his remaining palm wine to sell, hoping to earn enough for a small meal. Before he could set up his spot, a cynical trader named Obiora laughed loudly from across the path. "There goes the fool who works for free," Obiora announced to anyone listening. "Tell me, Kelechi, has your kindness made you rich yet?" Several people chuckled. Others looked away, embarrassed for him. Kelechi simply smiled. "Wealth comes in many forms, brother. Does it fill your belly?" Obiora sneered. Before Kelechi could respond, a small girl approached, struggling with a heavy water pot. Without hesitation, Kelechi set down his calabash and lifted the pot, carrying it across the marketplace to her mother's stall. The mother blessed him. The girl beamed. Obiora shook his head in disgust. But from the corner of the market, beneath a tree's shadow, someone watched intently. The same tall stranger from yesterday. His eyes followed Kelechi's every move with an expression that seemed almost measuring. Late afternoon brought unexpected fortune. The mysterious stranger approached Kelechi's small selling spot, where only 2 calabashes of palm wine remained. "How much?" the stranger asked. His voice was deep and calm. 3 cowries for 1 calabash, wise one," Kelechi replied respectfully. "I will take both." The stranger reached into his cloth bag and pulled out coins. Far more than 2 calabashes were worth. He placed them in Kelechi's hand and turned to leave. Kelechi's eyes widened. "Sir, wait. This is too much. You have given me triple the price." The stranger kept walking. Kelechi ran after him, weaving through the marketplace crowd, calling out. Finally, he caught up and grabbed the stranger's arm gently. "Please, sir. Take back what is yours. I cannot accept payment I have not earned. The stranger studied Kelechi's face for a long moment. Something unreadable flickered in his eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or recognition. Keep it, he said quietly. You will need it soon. But it is not right. Some debts are repaid before they are owed. The stranger pulled free and disappeared into the forest path beyond the village. Kelechi stood there, confused and uneasy, coins burning in his palm. Days passed, and something remarkable began to unfold. Each time Kelechi performed an act of kindness, unexpected blessings returned to him like echoes. When he repaired a neighbor's broken fence without being asked, his own fence, damaged in last week's storm, was mysteriously fixed the next morning. When he shared his meager breakfast with a hungry traveler, he returned that evening to find his palm trees had produced double the usual harvest. When he helped search for a lost goat belonging to a poor family, his own missing chicken reappeared in his yard, healthy and laying eggs. The pattern was undeniable. Impossible to ignore. Kelechi felt awe and gratitude wash over him, though he could not explain what was happening. He thanked the ancestors quietly each night, wondering if they were finally rewarding his humble efforts. But someone else was noticing too. Obiora, the skeptical trader, began watching more carefully. He saw the blessings. He saw the timing. His expression shifted from mockery to something darker, suspicion mixed with envy. Something is not natural here, Obiora muttered to others in the marketplace. Meanwhile, in the shadows, the mysterious stranger continued to appear and disappear like smoke, always watching, always measuring. The night the storm came, even the bravest hid indoors. Thunder shook the village like angry gods drumming the sky. Rain poured in sheets so thick you could barely see 3 steps ahead. Lightning split the darkness repeatedly, casting everything in blinding white flashes. Kelechi huddled in his small hut, listening to the wind tear at his roof. He should have stayed inside. He knew this. But between thunder crashes, he heard something else. A cry. Weak and desperate. Without thinking, Kelechi wrapped himself in his thinnest cloth and pushed out into the storm. Rain instantly soaked him through. He could barely keep his eyes open against the wind. Near the tallest palm trees, he found a figure collapsed in the mud. The stranger. Please, the man whispered, shivering violently. Help me. Later, Kelechi would remember the warnings shouted by neighbors who saw him carrying the stranger back. Do not trust outsiders. You do not know what evil he brings. Leave him to his fate. But Kelechi did not listen. He carried the stranger into his humble home, built up his small fire, and gave the sick man his only blanket. Through chattering teeth and fever, the stranger whispered 2 words that made no sense. The throne. By morning, the storm had passed. Soft light filtered through cracks in Kelechi's roof. The stranger's fever had broken. He sat up slowly, watching Kelechi prepare a simple breakfast of roasted plantain and palm wine. You saved my life, the stranger said quietly. Any decent person would have done the same. Would they? The stranger's expression was unreadable. Most heard my cries and closed their doors tighter. Kelechi said nothing. He simply shared his food. After they ate, the stranger spoke in a low, careful voice. I once knew the king very well. Before I fell ill, I served in his household. Kelechi looked up, surprised. The palace was distant, almost mythical to poor villagers like him. The king is old now, the stranger continued. Soon, this village will face a great choice. A decision that will change everything. What kind of choice? The stranger did not answer directly. Instead, he reached into his wet clothing and pulled out a small carved wooden token. The symbol etched into it was unmistakable, the royal mark. Keep this, he said, pressing it into Kelechi's palm. You may need it sooner than you think. Before Kelechi could ask what this meant, exhaustion claimed the stranger again. He fell into deep sleep. When dawn's first light painted the village in shades of gold and pink, Kelechi woke to an empty room. The stranger was gone. The bed where he had slept showed no wrinkles, no warmth, as if no one had ever been there. For a moment, Kelechi wondered if he had dreamed the entire night. But no, the wooden token remained, solid and real in his hand. He turned it over, studying the royal symbol carved with remarkable skill. What did it mean? Why had the stranger given it to him? Questions swirled in Kelechi's mind like leaves caught in wind. He stepped outside, hoping to catch sight of the stranger on the road, but found only the usual morning activity. Children playing, women sweeping, men preparing for the day's work. Everything seemed normal. Yet Kelechi felt deeply uneasy. Something had shifted in the air, like the pressure before a storm. He pocketed the token carefully and began his daily climb up the palm trees, trying to focus on familiar work. But in the distance, faint at first, then growing louder, he heard something that made his blood run cold. Drums. Deep, urgent, rhythmic drums coming from the direction of the palace. The sound that signaled only one thing. Important news was coming. By midday, the news had spread through the village like wildfire. The king had collapsed. Suddenly, without warning, he had fallen in his throne room, unconscious before his body touched the floor. The royal healers worked desperately, but their medicines seemed powerless against whatever afflicted him. Fear rippled through every household. The king had ruled for 30 years. Most people could not remember life under any other leader. What would happen if he died? Who would take his place? Kelechi listened to the worried conversations in the marketplace, feeling his own anxiety grow. He thought of the stranger's cryptic words. Soon, this village will face a great choice. Had the stranger known this would happen? That afternoon, Kelechi climbed his tallest palm tree, seeking solitude and clarity. From up high, he could see the palace in the distance, its walls gleaming white in the sunlight. Smoke rose from the sacred shrine nearby. The oracle was being consulted. Whatever was coming, it was bigger than anyone had anticipated. That evening, as Kelechi descended his tree, he noticed the token in his pocket felt warmer than before. Not burning, but distinctly warm, as if alive. He pulled it out and stared at it. The royal symbol seemed to pulse faintly in the fading light. The next morning, the oracle's pronouncement arrived like thunder. Village elders gathered everyone in the central square. The crowd pressed together, young and old, rich and poor, all desperate to hear what the oracle had declared. An elder's voice rang out. The oracle has spoken. The signs have shifted. The ancestors have shown a new path. The crowd held its breath. The next king, the elder continued, his voice trembling with the weight of his words, will not be chosen by wealth, not by bloodline, not by power or influence. Confused murmurs rippled through the people. The next king will be chosen by the purity of his heart, by the goodness of his deeds, by the character he showed when no one was watching. Silence fell. Such a thing had never been heard of. Kings came from royal families, from wealthy compounds, from established bloodlines. This was how things had always been. Then, cutting through the stunned quiet, a loud laugh erupted. Obiora, the skeptical trader, stepped forward mockingly. Purity of heart, goodness of deeds. What foolishness! How can such things be measured? This is madness. Others murmured agreement, though some looked thoughtful. Kelechi stood at the back of the crowd, heart pounding. He touched the token hidden in his pocket. It was burning hot now. That night, Kelechi could not sleep. He lay on his mat, staring at the darkness above, mind racing with questions. The token rested beside him, and every time he glanced at it, the royal symbol seemed to glow faintly in the moonlight streaming through his window. It had to be his imagination. Wood did not glow, but the light grew stronger. Kelechi sat up slowly, reaching for the token with trembling fingers. The moment he touched it, warmth spread up his arm, not painful, but powerful, like touching something ancient and alive. What was happening to him? A sudden knock at his door made him jump, heart hammering. "Who is there?" he called out, voice shaking. "Palace messenger." Open immediately. Kelechi's hands fumbled with the door. Outside stood 2 royal guards in ceremonial cloth, holding torches that cast dancing shadows across their stern faces. You are Kelechi, the Palmwine tapper? Why, yes. You are summoned to the palace at dawn. You are among the candidates being considered for a great honor. Do not be late. Before Kelechi could ask anything, they turned and disappeared into the night. Kelechi stood frozen in his doorway, mind reeling. Candidates. For what? Deep down, though he tried to deny it, he knew. Dawn came too quickly. Kelechi walked the long dusty road to the palace, his heart beating like the drums that still echoed from the royal compound. He had never been summoned to the palace before. Few poor villagers ever were. As he approached the great gates, he saw others arriving too. But these were not men like him. They wore fine cloth. Gold adorned their necks and wrists. They carried themselves with confidence and authority. These were wealthy merchants, successful farmers, respected elders, men of status and influence. And then there was Kelechi, in his patched working clothes, dusty feet, empty hands. He felt completely out of place. The guards led them into a magnificent courtyard. Kelechi had never seen such beauty. Polished stone, carved pillars, colorful tapestries hanging from high walls. One wealthy man beside him sneered quietly. What is a Palmwine tapper doing here? Someone made a mistake. Others chuckled. Kelechi said nothing. He simply stood with dignity, hands clasped, waiting. Then the oracle entered. Ancient and mysterious, wrapped in ceremonial robes that seemed to shimmer with power. The oracle's eyes scanned each candidate slowly, measuring, judging. When those eyes reached Kelechi, they stopped, lingered, studied him far longer than they had studied anyone else. The oracle raised one withered hand, and complete silence fell. Each of you stands here because someone has spoken your name. Someone has claimed you possess the character needed to lead. The oracle's voice was surprisingly strong for someone so ancient. But words mean nothing. We will measure your hearts. The candidates straightened, trying to look noble and worthy. One question, the oracle continued. Answer truthfully. The ancestors hear every word, every intention. The tension was unbearable. If you were given absolute power, power over life and death, wealth and poverty, justice and mercy, what would you do with it? One by one, the candidates answered. I would expand our trade routes and make us wealthy, said the first. I would strengthen our defenses and command respect from neighboring villages, said the second. I would establish order and ensure my authority was never questioned, said the third. Each answer focused on control, wealth, influence, power. Then the oracle's gaze fell on Kelechi. Every eye in the courtyard turned toward him. The poor Palmwine tapper who did not belong. Kelechi's mouth was dry. His voice shook at first, then grew steady. I would serve first. Before eating, I would ensure others were fed. Before resting, I would ensure others were safe. Power is not a gift for the one who holds it. It is a responsibility to those who do not. Profound silence filled the hall. That night, the old king died. Chaos erupted before dawn. Drums thundered through the darkness, their urgent rhythm announcing the unthinkable. The king was dead. The throne was empty. Kelechi woke to shouting in the streets. People running, crying. Fear spreading like poison through the village. A kingdom without a king was like a body without a head. Vulnerable, confused, directionless. Enemies might attack. Internal conflicts might explode. Everything could collapse into disorder. The wealthy candidates immediately began positioning themselves, gathering supporters, making promises. Each believed he would be chosen. Each prepared speeches and assembled followers. Kelechi simply sat in his small hut, holding the mysterious token, feeling overwhelmed and afraid. He was nobody. A poor Palmwine tapper. How had he even ended up in this situation? Outside, The drums continued their relentless beating. The sound was supposed to be ceremonial, but to Kelechi it felt like a countdown. By sunrise, the oracle would make the final announcement. By sunrise, everything would change. Kelechi tried to pray, but words would not come. He simply sat in the pre-dawn darkness, listening to his racing heart compete with the drums, wondering if this was all some terrible mistake. The token in his hand grew warmer with each passing moment. Just before dawn, Obiora burst through Kelechi's door without knocking. "You!" the trader shouted, pointing an accusing finger. "You planned this somehow. You tricked everyone." Behind Obiora, several other villagers crowded at the entrance, their faces suspicious and angry. "I do not understand," Kelechi began. "The mysterious stranger. The gifts. The blessings." Obiora's voice rose hysterically. "You arranged everything to make yourself look good. You manipulated the oracle." "That is not true," Kelechi said firmly, standing. "I have done nothing but live as I have always lived." "Lies. A poor palm wine tapper does not get summoned to the palace unless something corrupt is happening." The crowd murmured agreement. Fear and uncertainty had turned into anger, and anger needed a target. "How did you get that royal token?" someone shouted from the back. Kelechi's hand instinctively went to his pocket. He had not told anyone about the token. How did they know? Obiora smiled cruelly. "Yes, we know about it. People have seen the glow from your hut at night." "What magic are you using, Kelechi? What dark powers?" Before Kelechi could defend himself, the token in his pocket suddenly blazed with heat, so intense he gasped. The crowd stepped back, frightened. In the distance, the drums reached a fevered pitch. It was time. Palace guards arrived before the situation could escalate further. "Clear the way. The oracle has summoned Kelechi immediately." Obiora and the crowd were forced back as guards surrounded Kelechi protectively. They escorted him quickly through the awakening village, toward the palace gleaming in the first rays of sunrise. Instead of leading him to the main courtyard, they took him down a side corridor, through passages Kelechi had never seen. Finally, they stopped before a hidden door. "The elder will speak with you," a guard said quietly. "Alone." The door opened to reveal a small chamber lit by oil lamps. An ancient palace elder sat waiting, his face lined with decades of wisdom and secrets. "Sit, Kelechi," the elder said gently. Kelechi obeyed, trembling. "You are frightened, confused. That is understandable." The elder leaned forward. "It is time you knew the truth." "What truth?" "The stranger you saved during the storm." The elder paused, letting the weight of his next words settle. "Was the king himself." Kelechi's world tilted. "Impossible." "For many years," the elder continued, "our king would disguise himself and walk among his people. He wanted to see their true character when they did not know they were being observed. He wanted to find someone worthy to eventually inherit his wisdom and authority." Kelechi could barely breathe. "He tested many. You are the only one who passed." The elder stood slowly and walked to a wooden chest in the corner. "Let me show you proof," he said, opening the lid carefully. Inside were various disguises: old clothes, worn sandals, walking sticks. The exact clothing the stranger had worn. "The king suffered from a wasting illness," the elder explained. He knew his time was short. In his final months, he intensified his search for a successor who embodied the values our kingdom needed. The elder lifted out a small journal, its pages yellowed and worn. He kept records. "Listen to this entry from 3 months ago. Today, 12 men past me collapsed on the road. Only one stopped. Only one asked if I needed help. His name is Kelechi." Kelechi's eyes filled with tears. He remembered that day. An old man struggling with a heavy load. Of course he had stopped. "Here is another," the elder continued. "I offered Kelechi triple payment for his palm wine. He ran after me to return what was not his. In 30 years of testing people, I have never seen such honesty. The elder closed the journal gently. The king tested you repeatedly. You fed him when he pretended hunger. You gave him shelter during the storm when others turned him away. You showed him kindness when you thought no one was watching. He chose you, Kelechi. Before he died, he chose you. The drums outside intensified, calling everyone to gather. The palace courtyard overflowed with people. Every villager, every merchant, every farmer, everyone who could walk had come to hear the oracle's announcement. The crowd pressed together anxiously, speculation running wild about who would be named king. The wealthy candidates stood prominently at the front, each flanked by supporters, each trying to look most regal. Kelechi was led to stand among them, still wearing his simple work clothes, still looking completely out of place. Obiora stood in the crowd, arms crossed, wearing an expression of bitter satisfaction. He expected vindication, expected this foolish poor man to be exposed and humiliated. The oracle emerged, and the crowd instantly fell silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. People of this kingdom, the oracle's voice rang out powerfully, echoing off the palace walls. The ancestors have spoken. The choice has been revealed. Every heart in that courtyard beat faster. The crown will not go to the richest man. Not to the most powerful. Not to the one with the most supporters or the finest words. The oracle paused, building the tension to an unbearable peak. The crown goes to the one whose heart was proven unseen. The one who showed character when no one was watching. The one who chose kindness when cruelty would have been easier. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The name. Kelechi. The single word shattered the morning like lightning. 4-3 heartbeats, absolute silence reigned. No one moved. No one breathed. Then chaos erupted. Some people gasped in shock. Others shouted in disbelief. Some began arguing immediately while others stood frozen, unable to process what they had just heard. The wealthy candidates stared at Kelechi with expressions ranging from fury to pure bewilderment. But then, something remarkable happened. Obiora, the skeptical trader who had mocked Kelechi for years, who had just that morning accused him of corruption, Obiora was the first to move. He pushed through the crowd, fell to his knees before Kelechi, and bowed his head low. "Forgive me," Obiora whispered, voice breaking. "I was blind. I saw only what I wanted to see. You were always worthy, and I was too foolish to recognize it." One by one, others began to follow. Some knelt. Some bowed. Some simply looked at Kelechi with new eyes, seeing clearly for the first time the goodness that had always been there. Kelechi stood trembling, overwhelmed, unable to speak. The oracle placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "It is time," the elder whispered. "Your life has prepared you for this moment." Royal guards stepped forward to escort him inside. The transformation was beginning. What happened next would be remembered for generations. Kelechi, barefoot and dusty from his morning walk, was led into the grand palace hall. Every step took him deeper into a world he had only imagined from outside these walls. The walk seemed both eternal and instant. From the hot dust of the village road, through the outer courtyard where guards stood at attention, past towering pillars carved with the history of kings before him. His bare feet touched cool polished stone for the first time. The temperature changed. The air smelled different, incense and flowers instead of smoke and sweat. Tapestries depicting ancient victories hung from high walls. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, painting everything in gold. At the far end of the hall, the throne waited. Not just furniture, but a symbol of responsibility, wisdom, and power accumulated over generations. The crowd followed behind him in reverent silence, filling the hall to witness this unprecedented moment. Kelechi walked slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. Not from fear, but from the growing awareness of what this meant. His simple life was ending. A new, impossibly complex life was beginning. He reached the throne. The oracle held the crown, ancient gold, heavy with history and meaning. Everyone held their breath. This was the moment that would define everything. The crown touched his head. There were no magical flames. No thunder from the heavens. No dramatic signs from the ancestors. Just quiet, profound weight. The physical weight of gold pressing down on his skull. But more than that, the metaphorical weight of thousands of lives now depending on his wisdom, his judgment, his character. Kelechi felt both impossibly small and impossibly large at the same time. The oracle stepped back. Palace officials bowed low. The crowd watched in awe, witnessing something they had never imagined possible. A poor palm wine tapper transformed into their king in the space of a single sunrise. Kelechi stood there for a long moment, letting reality settle over him like a new skin. This was real. This was happening. He was king. Then, slowly, deliberately, Kelechi did something no one expected. Instead of sitting on the throne to receive the traditional pledges of loyalty, instead of claiming his position with royal authority, he stepped down, walked back down the marble steps, approached the nearest palace guard, a young man who looked nervous and uncertain. Kelechi removed the calabash that still hung at his waist. His old, worn palm wine gourd, the symbol of his humble past. He placed it carefully in the guard's hands. "Share this with everyone who is hungry," Kelechi said clearly, voice carrying through the silent hall. "No one eats before the hungry are fed. Not even the king." The impact was immediate and powerful. The crowd, which had been uncertain and divided, erupted in genuine respect and wonder. This was not a man drunk on sudden power. This was not someone who had forgotten where he came from. This was a king who remembered what it felt like to be hungry, who understood struggle because he had lived it, who valued kindness because he had needed it himself. The young guard stood frozen, holding the calabash with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face at the honor just given to him. Palace officials exchanged glances. Some smiled. Others looked thoughtful. All recognized that something special had just begun. Kelechi turned back toward the throne, but he did not sit yet. "I am your king now," he said to the gathered crowd, voice steady despite his racing heart, "but I will never forget what it means to have nothing. I will never forget the taste of hunger or the weight of injustice or the sting of being overlooked and undervalued." His words rang through the hall with absolute conviction. "We will build a kingdom where kindness is not foolish but wise, where helping others is not weakness but strength, where a person's worth is measured by their heart, not their wealth." The crowd roared approval, not the polite applause of ceremony, but genuine, thunderous agreement. Outside, drums began beating again, but this time with celebration, not urgency. Days later, when the ceremonial celebrations had calmed, the full truth was revealed publicly. The palace elder stood in the marketplace, the same dusty, chaotic marketplace where Kelechi had sold his palm wine, and told everyone what had really happened. "The king you mourned," the elder announced, "walked among you for months in disguise. He wanted to see his people as they truly were. He wanted to find someone worthy not through political games or family connections, but through genuine character." The crowd listened, spellbound. "He tested many of you. He pretended to be poor, hungry, sick, lost. He observed how you treated those who could do nothing for you in return." Uncomfortable shuffling rippled through the gathered villagers. People remembered times they had ignored beggars, refused help to strangers, mocked the weak. Only one person consistently showed him kindness. Only one person helped without expecting reward. Only one person returned money that was not his, sheltered a stranger during a storm, shared his last calabash of wine. Everyone knew who the elder meant. The stranger you saw was your king, testing his kingdom. And Kelechi was the only one who passed. Gasps of recognition and shame spread through the crowd. The elder smiled gently. "Perhaps now you understand why character matters more than wealth. Why kindness performed in secret writes its own destiny." Kelechi kept his promise. Within weeks, changes rippled through the kingdom. Not dramatic upheavals, but steady, meaningful transformations that touched real lives. The first act, he returned to the marketplace in his royal robes. Not to be admired, but to work. He personally funded the repair of the old widow's house, the same widow he had given free palm wine to for years. He ensured she would never struggle with a leaking roof again. He opened the royal granaries and established a permanent food distribution system for the poor. No one in his kingdom would starve while grain sat unused in storage. He commissioned the digging of new wells in the poorest sections of the village, ensuring clean water for everyone, not just the wealthy. He created a council that included voices from every level of society, not just rich merchants and powerful families, but farmers, craftspeople, even palm wine tappers. And one afternoon, he walked through the marketplace and stopped at Obiora's stall. The trader looked up, terrified, expecting punishment for his past mockery and accusations. Instead, Kelechi smiled warmly. "Brother," he said, "I need your help. You understand trade better than anyone. Will you advise me on improving our marketplace so everyone can prosper?" Obiora stared in disbelief. Then tears filled his eyes. "I do not deserve your forgiveness, my king." "Perhaps not," Kelechi agreed gently. "But I give it anyway. That is what kindness does." Years passed, and the kingdom flourished under King Kelechi's wisdom. But the true measure of his reign was not found in expanded territories or accumulated wealth. It was found in how people treated each other. Children grew up hearing his story, how a poor palm wine tapper became king not through ambition or manipulation, but through consistent kindness performed when no one was watching. They learned that character matters more than status. That small acts of goodness ripple outward in ways we cannot predict. That power should serve others, not itself. The kingdom became known throughout the region not for its military might, but for its compassion. Travelers spoke of a place where even the poorest were treated with dignity, where justice was fair, where kindness was valued as strength. And sometimes, late at night, King Kelechi would walk through his magnificent palace and remember his small hut. He would touch the old wooden token, still kept in his personal chambers, and smile. He would think of that mysterious stranger who turned out to be a dying king searching for something rare and precious, a truly good heart. "Kindness done in secret writes its own destiny," he would whisper to himself. "Power may come overnight, but it is prepared for over a lifetime through small choices, humble acts, and moments when no one is watching."